There are singers whose voices entertain us, and then there are singers whose voices hold us together. Crystal Gayle was the second kind, a woman who carried softness like armor and survived a world that often punished gentle souls. She rose from poverty, lived in a shadow she never asked for, sang her way into global fame, and still spent her nights fighting the quiet wounds no spotlight could cure. This is not just the story of a legend. It is the story of a woman who spent her whole life giving comfort to others while silently searching for a place her own heart could finally rest. Some voices come from comfort, but others grow slowly through hardship, hunger, and the pressure of becoming responsible before childhood even ends. Crystal Gayle's voice belonged to the second kind. She was born Brenda Gayle Webb in Paintsville, Kentucky, as the youngest of 8 children in a family that lived with very little. Her father, Melvin Ted Webb, worked long hours as a coal miner. The work damaged his lungs over many years, and he developed black lung disease, which weakened his breathing and left him struggling each day. The family lived simply, sharing small spaces, eating whatever they could manage, and doing their best to stay warm and fed. Money was always tight, and Crystal grew up knowing what it meant to live with limits, not choices. Being the youngest child in a big family, Crystal learned early how to blend into the background and how to find comfort in quiet. But she also heard the older siblings talk about dreams, struggles, and the challenges of surviving in a coal mining community. Her father's illness slowly shaped the family's future. His health continued to decline, and the worry around him made life heavier for everyone in the house. When doctors said he needed better care, the family made the difficult decision to move to Wabash, Indiana. They hoped the change would help him breathe easier and maybe live longer. For Crystal, the move meant leaving the place she knew, but at her young age she had no choice but to follow the family's hope. Sadly, the move did not save her father. When Crystal was only 8 years old, he passed away. Losing her father at such a young age left a deep emotional mark on her. She had barely begun to understand him, and suddenly, he was gone. The grief in the family affected everyone, but for Crystal, it created a kind of quiet space inside her that she carried through life. Her mother, Clara, worked tirelessly to raise the children alone. She depended on her older children to help, and Crystal learned early that life demanded strength, not excuses. During those years, Crystal found comfort in singing. She sang in church, at home, and in school. People around her noticed her soft voice, which many described as gentle and soothing. It did not come from training or ambition. It came naturally, almost like breathing. Singing helped her deal with sadness and the feeling of being small in a big family. It became her safe place. While many children played outside, Crystal often chose to sing quietly to herself, learning without realizing it how to express emotion through sound. One important moment in her childhood happened when she heard her sister Loretta Lynn's voice on the radio. Loretta had already begun building a music career, and hearing her on the air made Crystal feel something shift inside her. She realized that singing could be more than comfort. It could be a way out of poverty. It could be a future. But at the same time, this discovery came with its own struggle. As soon as people learned she was Loretta's younger sister, they labeled her quickly. Wherever she went, she was called Loretta's little sister, as if she did not have her own identity. Teachers, neighbors, church members, and even strangers connected her immediately to Loretta. This made Crystal proud but also unsure of how she would ever be seen as her own person. As Crystal grew older, she continued singing in church and school programs. She also recorded small demo tapes. These early practices helped shape her voice, not through pressure, but through repetition and emotion. Her sound did not come from loud power or strong projection. Instead, it was quiet, soft, and breathy. It reflected who she was, a gentle child growing up in a world that demanded toughness. Her softness became a form of survival. It helped her manage pain. It helped her remain calm. It helped her express what she could not put into words. Crystal did not receive formal vocal lessons during childhood. Instead, she learned by listening. She listened to church music, country songs, and the voices of people around her. She listened deeply because listening was a natural part of being the youngest child. Over time, she began to understand how her voice worked. She noticed that people paid attention when she sang softly, not loudly. This taught her that she did not need to compete with others to be heard. Her strength lay in subtlety. Her gift was in how she delivered emotion without force. These early influences shaped the artist she would become. Her voice grew slowly, through quiet moments, through grief, through long days of watching her mother work hard to support the family, and through the example set by Loretta. At the same time, Crystal tried to separate herself from her sister's identity. She admired Loretta deeply, but she also feared that she would always be seen only as a smaller version of her. This fear followed her through childhood and into young adulthood, creating a pressure she had to face before she could step into her own career. As Crystal entered her teenage years, she continued recording demos and performing whenever she could. Friends, teachers, and family members noticed her steady improvement. Her voice became smoother and more controlled, and she learned how to make sadness sound gentle instead of heavy. Her softness became her signature. People remembered her not because she was loud, but because she made them feel calm. This early foundation set the stage for everything that would come later. But her childhood also prepared her for struggle. Growing up with loss, poverty, and constant comparisons taught her resilience. She understood that nothing would come easily. She also understood that music would be her way forward, even if the path was difficult. She held on to singing not as a dream but as a lifeline. But just when the world seemed ready to embrace her, Crystal discovered that stepping into music meant stepping directly into a shadow so large it threatened to swallow her whole. Every young artist hopes for guidance from someone who understands their dream, but sometimes that guidance becomes a weight that blocks their ability to grow. That was the reality Crystal faced as she stepped into the world of country music. Her first major break came unexpectedly. Loretta became sick before a performance at the Grand Ole Opry, and the family turned to Crystal, who was still a teenager, to fill in for her. Most young singers never even get close to the Opry stage, but Crystal walked onto it with the pressure of representing her famous sister. When she sang "Ribbon of Darkness," the audience noticed her gentle, emotional delivery. For the first time, people realized she was more than just someone's younger sister. The performance opened doors, but it also deepened the comparisons that would later follow her everywhere. After that moment, there was no turning back. The industry saw potential in Crystal and pushed her toward a career. She soon signed with Decca Records, the same label that handled Loretta's music. While this seemed like the right step, it also created a problem. The label wanted her to sound like Loretta, dress like Loretta, and follow the same musical path Loretta had already made famous. Instead of encouraging her to explore her own voice, they expected her to repeat what had already worked for her sister. The pressure was not spoken directly, but it was present in every song choice, every studio session, and every marketing decision. Crystal recorded several early singles under Decca, but critics and listeners immediately compared them to Loretta's work. Some even used the term Loretta Light, which deeply hurt Crystal. She wanted to respect her sister, but she also wanted to stand on her own feet. Being reduced to a softer version of someone else made her question whether she had true talent or was simply benefiting from her sister's name. This began to affect her confidence. She struggled with self-doubt and a sense that no matter how hard she tried, she would never be taken seriously as an independent artist. Loretta loved Crystal and supported her, but Loretta's success was so large and so influential that it created an unavoidable shadow. Crystal admired her sister, looked up to her, and appreciated the support she gave. But the closeness also made it harder for Crystal to separate her own identity from the expectations placed on her. When everyone sees you through the lens of someone else, it becomes difficult to understand who you truly are. During this period, Crystal's name also became a topic of discussion. Her birth name, Brenda, was considered too common for the industry. Loretta saw a sign for a restaurant called Crystal and suggested it for her sister. That is how Crystal Gayle was born, a fresh, memorable name with a gentler feel. The new name helped her stand out slightly, but it did not erase the comparisons or the belief that she was simply an extension of Loretta. Even with a different name, people still introduced her as Loretta Lynn's sister, as if her identity could not exist without that label. As she continued working with Decca, Crystal realized that following the same musical style as her sister was limiting her growth. Her natural voice was softer, more controlled, and emotional in a different way. She could not mimic Loretta's strong mountain tone, even if she wanted to. And the truth was, she did not want to. Deep down, she knew she had a different sound and needed space to develop it. But the industry did not want difference. They wanted familiarity. They wanted someone who could continue the success of Loretta Lynn. This created a painful conflict between what Crystal felt inside and what the label demanded from her. The emotional toll grew heavier with time. Crystal began to feel anxious about performances and recording sessions. She wondered if she would ever be recognized for her own strengths. She also started to develop imposter syndrome, believing she did not deserve opportunities unless she sounded more like Loretta. Instead of feeling excited about her career, she felt trapped. Her early singles did not perform well, and critics dismissed her as being too gentle, too soft, and not assertive enough for country music. The stagnation hurt her spirit and made her question whether she should continue singing professionally. Crystal reached a point where she understood that staying on the same path would never allow her to grow. She respected her sister deeply, but she did not want to be a copy of someone else. She needed to discover who she was as an artist. She needed a space where she could explore her voice freely. She needed to break away from the expectations that had shaped her early years in the industry. This realization came slowly but firmly. Every disappointing review, every comparison, and every internal doubt pushed her to a clearer understanding. If she did not create her own path, she would never truly succeed. Leaving Decca felt risky. The label was stable, familiar, and supportive of Loretta. But the longer Crystal stayed there, the more she felt stuck. She wanted change, even if it meant starting over from the bottom. She knew she needed a producer who understood her softness, instead of trying to change it, a team that valued her quiet style, and a label that would allow her to grow without forcing her into someone else's image. Her decision to walk away from the label was not only a professional choice, but a personal turning point. It meant stepping out of the comfort of her sister's circle and accepting the uncertainty of creating her own identity. This took courage because the world still saw her mainly through the connection to Loretta. But Crystal was ready to try, ready to fight for her own name, her own voice, and her own future. But in 1974, Crystal made a decision that would tear her free from expectation and lead her directly into the arms of the producer who would change her life forever. Sometimes in life, one person doesn't just hear the voice you show the world, they hear the voice you have been scared to use. For Crystal, that person was Alan Reynolds. After years of feeling stuck at Decca Records and being shaped into a softer version of her sister, she knew she needed a real change. That change came when she signed with United Artists in the mid-1970s. For the first time, she entered a place where she was not treated like an extension of Loretta Lynn, but as a woman with her own potential and her own musical direction. When Crystal met producer Alan Reynolds, everything started to shift. He listened to her carefully, not just to the notes she sang, but to the tone, the softness, and the emotion that naturally came through. One of the first things he asked her was, "Who are you, not Loretta?" No one had ever asked her that before. Until then, people only cared how closely she could match her sister's strength and sound. Alan noticed right away that Crystal had something different, something the industry had not focused on yet. Her voice was calm, smooth, controlled, and emotional in a gentle way. Instead of trying to toughen it or push it, he told her to lean into it. Under Alan's guidance, Crystal began developing a new sound for herself. It was softer than traditional country, with touches of pop influence that made it easy to listen to. Her voice floated lightly over the music instead of driving through it. At the time, most female country singers had strong, bold voices, but Crystal's gentle, whisper-like tone stood out. Alan encouraged her to trust that softness and use it as her strength rather than seeing it as a weakness. This was the first time she felt someone believed in her unique style. The music sessions with Alan were important, not only for her career, but also for her emotional growth. For years, she had been compared to Loretta and told to follow a mold that never fit her. Now, she finally had space to explore what felt natural. Alan helped her understand the power of small details in her singing. He taught her how slight changes in tone could express strong feelings without needing volume. Their sessions were patient and thoughtful, giving Crystal a level of comfort she had never experienced in a studio before. It was the beginning of finding her true artistic identity. During this period, Crystal recorded songs that quietly began shaping her new direction. Tracks like Restless, Wrong Road Again, and This Is My Year for Mexico started showing listeners the style she was growing into. These songs blended country storytelling with a pop-influenced sound that highlighted her soft voice. Even though they were not major hits at first, they allowed audiences to hear Crystal as Crystal, not as a copy of someone else. For the first time, she felt she had control over her music and confidence in her sound. As these songs gained attention, her chart positions slowly began rising. She wasn't yet at the top, but she was moving upward in a steady and promising way. People in the industry started noticing her new tone and the emotional warmth she brought to each track. This period was a major emotional relief for Crystal. After years of feeling overshadowed, she finally felt seen. She felt understood. Most importantly, she felt free. The weight of comparison began lifting, and the fear of being stuck in someone else's shadow started fading. She could finally breathe and focus on what she wanted to share with the world. The breakthrough moment came in 1976 with the release of I'll Get Over You. The song carried her soft, steady sound into a wider audience. It showed the country world that an artist didn't need to shout to deliver strong emotion. The track reached Hashone on the country charts, becoming her first major hit. This was the moment Crystal truly stepped into her own name. She proved that she wasn't just known because of her sister. She was known because people genuinely loved her voice and her music. The success brought her a sense of confidence she had been missing for years. It was a signal that her direction was right, that her voice had a place, and that listeners wanted what she offered. With this success came an internal change. Crystal began to trust her instincts more. She felt clearer about who she was as an artist. Instead of second-guessing how people would compare her to Loretta, she focused on strengthening her own style. Her soft tone, once criticized for being too gentle, was now recognized as refreshing and special. She realized that her quietness was not a weakness, but a signature. The confidence she gained from this hit made her ready for bigger challenges and possibilities. She no longer felt like she was trying to escape a shadow. She felt like she was building something new. As Crystal continued working with Alan Reynolds, their collaboration became stronger. He understood her voice in a way no one else did. Together, they shaped the sound that later defined her career. A clean, smooth mix of country and pop that highlighted emotional honesty. Alan respected her personality, her pace, and her gentle nature. He knew how to guide her without pushing too hard. Their working relationship turned into a partnership that would carry her into major success. But even as she settled comfortably into this new sound, something unexpected was waiting for her. A song that was almost handed to another artist suddenly became available to her. This track would not just support her career, it would define it. It was the kind of moment that changes everything for a singer, giving them a trademark, a musical identity, and a place in history. But just when she thought her sound was complete, a song almost given away to another artist fell into her hands, and nothing in Crystal's life would ever be the same. Some songs rise slowly on the charts, and some songs stop time the moment people hear them. For Crystal, that song was "Don't It Make My Brown Eyes Blue." The story behind it feels almost accidental. The songwriter, Richard Lee, originally intended it for Shirley Bassey, known for her powerful voice and dramatic delivery. But when Alan Reynolds heard the song, he felt strongly that it belonged to Crystal instead. He believed the gentle tone of the song matched her soft voice better than anyone else's. This decision changed everything for her career. When Crystal stepped into the studio to record it, she did not expect anything unusual. She had no idea it would become the song that defined her life. The recording session was simple and quick. She sang the entire track in one take. That single take carried a natural emotion that could not be recreated. She did not overthink it or push herself. She just delivered the song as honestly as she could. The purity in her voice was what made the recording so special. It captured her calmness, her sadness, and her sincerity without any extra effort. That version was the one released to the world. When the song came out in 1977, its impact was immediate. Suddenly, her voice was everywhere. Radio stations played it non-stop. People who had never heard of Crystal Gayle were now searching for her albums. It was not just a country hit. It crossed over into pop, something very few country songs managed to do at that time. The track reached the top of the country charts and climbed all the way to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. It also reached audiences far beyond the United States. The song became a hit in the United Kingdom, Australia, Japan, and several European countries. Crystal went from being a rising country singer to a global name almost overnight. Along with her voice, her appearance also became part of her identity. Her long hair, which she had grown for years, became a symbol recognized around the world. It flowed past her waist, and sometimes almost to the floor. People remembered her not just for her music, but for her unique look. Her soft voice and long hair created an image that was easy to identify and impossible to forget. It helped her stand out in an industry where many artists tried to be louder or more dramatic. Crystal used calmness as her strength. Her success came at a time when country music was beginning to change. Nashville was slowly opening the door to mixing country with pop influences. Crystal became one of the first artists to lead this shift. Her smooth, modern sound helped create what later became known as the country pop style. She did not just fit into this movement, she helped build it. People started to see that country music could be gentle, emotional, and radio-friendly for a wider audience. She played a major role in shaping the sound of the late 1970 seconds and early 1980 seconds. During this period, Crystal was not simply singing hits, she was becoming an era. Her music style, her voice, and her image set the tone for a new direction in country music. She became one of the most recognizable artists of her time. Concert halls filled quickly wherever she performed. Television shows invited her regularly. Awards ceremonies nominated her again and again. She carried herself with a calm, warm presence that people connected with instantly. After "Don't It Make My Brown Eyes Blue," the hits continued. Throughout the early 1980 seconds, Crystal delivered several songs that became fan favorites and solidified her career. "Talking in Your Sleep" became another major success, showing how her soft delivery could express complex emotion. "Ready for the Times to Get Better" became a comforting song for many listeners, especially during uncertain periods. Her duet with Eddie Rabbitt, "You and I," became one of the most popular love songs of the decade and was played at countless weddings across the country. Their voices blended smoothly, and the song later became known as one of the strongest duets in country pop history. As her career grew, the recognition did too. She won numerous awards, including Grammys, Academy of Country Music Awards, and American Music Awards. She appeared on international television programs, expanding her audience even more. World tours took her across several continents, where she performed for people who didn't even speak English, but understood her emotion through music alone. Her soft voice connected with people everywhere, proving that emotional honesty does not need translation. Crystal's style also influenced many female artists who came after her. Singers like Shania Twain, Faith Hill, Martina McBride, and others later followed paths that blended pop and country. They found success with smoother tones, softer delivery, and crossover appeal steps that Crystal helped make possible. She showed that a woman did not have to sing loudly or forcefully to make an impact. Her quiet strength opened the door for many who came after her. Even as she reached worldwide fame, Crystal continued to stay grounded. Her calm nature remained unchanged, and she stayed dedicated to her family life. While her voice floated across the world, her personal life remained private. People saw the confident performer, but behind the scenes, she was still the gentle, thoughtful woman who had grown up in a large working-class family. Fame did not erase her need for stability, nor did it remove the fear of losing the people closest to her. But even as her voice floated flawlessly across the world, Crystal was hiding a truth the public never saw. A life lived quietly in fear of losing the few people who held her heart together. She sang to millions, but at home, she only needed one man to hear her. Crystal met Bill Gatzimos when they were both in high school. Unlike the noisy world of music she would later enter, Bill was calm, steady, and focused. He was studying law and had no interest in fame or entertainment. That balance was exactly what Crystal needed. She was shy, gentle, and unsure of her future, and Bill became the person who made her feel safe and understood. Their relationship grew slowly and naturally, without pressure or spotlight. They shared simple conversations, supported each other's goals, and built a quiet connection that stayed strong through every stage of their lives. Crystal and Bill married in 1971, long before she became a major star. Their wedding was private and without glamour, reflecting the kind of life they wanted together. From the beginning, they agreed that their relationship came before fame or public attention. Bill believed in Crystal's talent, but he also understood her personality. He knew she was not someone who wanted the fast, chaotic lifestyle that often came with success. Instead, she wanted stability, family, and a peaceful home. Their partnership became the foundation of her adult life. As Crystal's music career grew, Bill slowly stepped into the role of her manager. He handled contracts, schedules, and business decisions so that Crystal could focus on singing without stress. This helped her build a stable career structure during years when fame could have easily overwhelmed her. Many artists struggled with pressure and constant decision-making, but Crystal had Bill to guide her. He remained logical and calm during busy tours and studio commitments. Their partnership combined his organizational strength with her emotional sensitivity, allowing them to work together smoothly. Touring became a major part of Crystal's life during her peak years, and managing it required effort from both of them. Bill planned travel routes, hotel stays, and performance schedules, while Crystal concentrated on rehearsals and preserving her voice. The long months on the road were not easy, especially for someone naturally private like Crystal, but having Bill by her side made the experience less lonely. They learned how to support each other through the stress of travel, the demands of fans, and the constant attention that came with success. Their marriage grew stronger because they faced those challenges together instead of apart. Their life changed again when they became parents. Their daughter, Catherine, was born in 1983, and their son, Christos, followed in 1986. Motherhood added joy to Crystal's life in a way that fame never could. She often said that her children were her greatest gifts. During this time, she made choices that many performers hesitate to make. She paused parts of her career and reduced her touring schedule so she could spend more time at home. When she did travel, she carried her responsibilities as a mother with her. There were times when she would finish a performance, walk backstage, and nurse her baby before going back to meet fans or complete interviews. The balance was difficult, but she chose family over convenience without regret. Crystal and Bill agreed early on that their children would be raised in a normal and private environment. They did not want Catherine and Christos to grow up under the pressure of having a famous mother. They protected their children from the public eye and avoided showing them in media or interviews. Their home in Nashville became their safe space. There, they lived like any other family. They cooked dinner together, helped with homework, celebrated birthdays quietly, and enjoyed evenings without work demands. Crystal preferred routine and stability, which made home life peaceful and grounded. Even after becoming a major star, Crystal stayed committed to privacy. She avoided the entertainment industry's drama and kept her personal life away from public attention. This was not out of arrogance, but simply because she valued her family more than publicity. She liked living simply, and she avoided anything that could threaten the calm environment she worked so hard to build. She believed that fame could come and go, but family stayed constant if you protected it. As time passed, her children grew into adults who respected the life their parents built. Catherine chose to stay away from public attention, living a private life much like her mother preferred. Christos, however, developed a connection with music. He did not want to be a performer, but he was interested in production and sound engineering. As he grew older, he and Crystal began spending more time discussing music, sharing ideas, and exploring studio work together. This eventually led to a meaningful moment in Crystal's later career. In 2019, Christos helped produce her album, You Don't Know Me. Working together in the studio became a full-circle experience for both of them. For Crystal, it felt like the blending of her two worlds, motherhood and music, in the most natural way possible. Through all the years of fame, touring, and industry pressure, the gentle family relationships inside the Gatsimos home remained steady. Crystal and Bill kept their bond strong by supporting each other's needs. They respected each other's space and worked as a team rather than living separate lives. Their home was not filled with glamour or show business noise. It was filled with regular moments, meals, quiet conversations, family gatherings, and the everyday routines that gave Crystal a sense of balance. The life she built behind the spotlight was exactly the kind of life she had always wanted: warm, calm, and protected. Crystal fought hard to preserve this reality. She knew how easily fame could damage families and marriages. Many artists around her struggled with divorce, public scandals, and broken relationships. Crystal wanted something different, and she maintained that by choosing privacy, loyalty, and responsibility, her family became her strongest support system, helping her stay grounded through every success and challenge. They were the reason she could walk through a demanding industry without losing herself. But even in this peaceful domestic world, a storm was gathering, one that would take from Crystal the person who had shaped her, challenged her, loved her, and haunted her shadow since childhood. Some losses make the world feel darker, but losing a sister can feel like losing the sky itself. For Crystal, her relationship with Loretta Lynn was one of the most meaningful and complicated parts of her life. From childhood to adulthood, they were tied together not only by family, but by music, success, and years of shared experiences. People often focused on the comparisons and the differences between them, but beneath all of that was a deep bond. Loretta was more than a famous sister. She was someone Crystal admired, trusted, and looked up to through every stage of her career. Growing up, Crystal watched Loretta work hard to become a star. Loretta's achievements brought pride to the family, but they also placed pressure on Crystal. While she appreciated her sister's success, she also struggled with being constantly compared to her. Still, their closeness remained. Loretta gave Crystal advice, encouraged her, and supported her decisions. She understood both the strength and the softness in Crystal. Even when the world pushed comparisons, Loretta tried to protect her younger sister from criticism and self-doubt. Their relationship had both love and difficulty, but through it all, the connection stayed strong. Crystal also carried a sadness throughout her life that came from the loss of her father when she was young. She barely had time to know him, and his early death left a space that never fully healed. This sadness showed up in her personality, her music, and the way she approached life. She often spoke softly about him, remembering only small moments, but feeling the weight of his absence at every major point in her life. Losing him at such a young age shaped her emotional world and made her value family deeply. As Crystal's career grew, she faced challenges that most fans never saw. She was naturally introverted, which made the demands of fame extremely draining. Interviews, tours, public attention, and constant activity were not things she enjoyed. She pushed herself because she loved music, but the public side of the job took a toll on her. She often felt tired from trying to stay open and friendly when her true nature preferred quiet and privacy. She handled everything with grace, but behind the scenes, she needed long periods of rest to recover from the pressure. There were also many personal struggles that never made it into the media. Crystal dealt with anxiety, self-doubt, and the emotional pressure of being in an industry that constantly judged appearance, sound, and personal choices. She was sensitive and thoughtful, which made negative comments harder to ignore. She often kept these feelings to herself because she did not want to seem ungrateful or weak. Instead, she focused on her family, her music, and her home life to help her stay grounded. As the years passed, Crystal slowly began stepping back from the spotlight. She continued to perform, but not at the same pace as before. She wanted more time with her husband, her children, and eventually her grandchildren. Aging helped her understand what mattered most to her. She realized that she did not need fame to feel fulfilled. She had already proven her talent and achieved more than she ever imagined. Now, she wanted peace, stability, and a simpler rhythm to her days. She enjoyed reading, cooking, spending time outdoors, and reflecting on the life she had built. Then, in 2022, Crystal faced the hardest loss of her adult life. Loretta Lynn passed away. Even though they had lived separate lives and had their own careers, their bond never faded. Loretta's death hit Crystal deeply. It felt like losing a part of her own history. Loretta had been there from the beginning, guiding her, challenging her, and shaping her in ways no one else could. Losing her was like losing the last piece of her childhood and one of the strongest emotional connections she ever had. After Loretta's passing, Crystal withdrew even further from public life. She did not give many interviews or appear on stage as often. She needed time to process the loss quietly. She grieved in her own way, choosing silence, family support, and personal reflection instead of public statements. Friends and neighbors noticed her becoming more private, spending most of her time at home or with her family. Her grief was not loud or dramatic. It was slow, deep, and steady like a quiet earthquake that changes everything from the inside. In the rare interviews she did give, Crystal spoke gently about memory, family, aging, and faith. She reflected on the lessons she learned throughout her life and the importance of staying true to oneself. She talked about her sister with love, gratitude, and sadness. She explained how deep connections shape a person and how losing someone so important forces you to look inward. These interviews showed a woman who had lived fully, loved deeply, and carried both joy and sorrow with maturity. Crystal's later years became less about performing and more about reflecting. She understood that her time in the spotlight had passed, and she felt no need to fight against that. Instead, she chose a life centered on inner peace, family, small routines, and meaningful memories. She valued the quiet moments of her days more than the bright lights she once stood under. Her faith helped guide her through grief, and her family continued to support her as she learned to live without her sister. And yet, from this grief, Crystal would enter a final chapter, one the public rarely sees, one defined not by applause, but by a kind of peace she once thought she would never find. Legends do not fade, they simply soften. Today, Crystal Gayle lives a life completely different from the busy years when she traveled the world and stood under bright stage lights. She lives in a large, peaceful home in Indiana, over 7,000 square feet, built with care and comfort in mind. This home became her safe place, her retreat, and the space where she finally allowed herself to slow down. After spending decades in the music industry, surrounded by schedules, expectations, and public attention, she now spends her days doing the things that bring her calm. She cooks simple meals, often the kind she has made for many years. She reads books that interest her, listens to music that relaxes her, and sings whenever she feels inspired. Nothing is rushed, nothing is forced. Her days follow a natural rhythm. One of the biggest joys in her life now is spending time with her grandchildren. She helps care for them, plays with them, and teaches them small lessons that come from experience. She sometimes sings old songs to them, passing down the gentle voice that carried her through so many years. Her grandchildren do not see her as a star. They see her as their grandmother, someone warm, loving, and dependable. This role brings her more happiness than any award or public recognition ever could. Crystal also continues to stay connected to music through her son, Christos. Their bond grew stronger as he entered adulthood and became interested in music production. Working together became a meaningful part of Crystal's later years. In 2019, they collaborated on her album, You Don't Know Me. This album was not made to climb charts or regain fame. Instead, Crystal saw it as a gift to her longtime listeners. She wanted to offer something honest, something that reflected her roots and her love for traditional country music. Recording it with her son made the experience even more special. It was a blending of past and present, a gentle reminder that music had always been part of her family life. As she stepped away from the stage, Crystal turned more toward personal growth and spiritual reflection. The fast pace of her earlier years slowly gave way to a quieter way of living. Instead of chasing success, she focused on meaning, health, and gratitude. She often thinks about the journey she has lived, from her childhood in a coal mining family to the height of worldwide fame. She knows how much she overcame, how many emotional battles she fought silently, and how important it was to stay true to herself through it all. The quiet time she has now allows her to reflect on the lessons life taught her, including the value of kindness and patience. Crystal's influence on country pop remains strong, even though she is no longer in the center of the industry. Many modern artists still follow the path she helped shape. Her blend of soft vocals with gentle pop production opened a door for singers who did not fit the traditional sound of country music. Her success proved that softness could be powerful, that emotion could be expressed without force, and that music could touch listeners deeply without being loud. Artists such as Shania Twain, Faith Hill, Martina McBride, and others benefited from the style Crystal helped create. She remains a quiet influence, someone whose work changed the direction of a genre without seeking attention for it. Her entire career showed what unbroken softness means in a world that often pushes people to be harder than they really are. Crystal never tried to be someone she wasn't. Even when the industry pressured her to match her sister's strength or follow trends, she stayed connected to her natural voice. This choice shaped her legacy. People admired her not only for her music but for her gentle personality. In a world full of noise, she became known for calmness. In a competitive business, she became known for grace. Her kindness, both on and off stage, left a stronger mark than any dramatic performance ever could. Crystal herself often reflects on the meaning of her journey. She knows she lived a life filled with both beauty and pain. She lost her father young, carried the weight of comparisons to her sister, fought through doubts, and worked her way to success through patience and consistency. She built a stable marriage and raised children with love and protection. She experienced worldwide fame, but she never let it define her. As she looks back, she focuses not on the trophies or records, but on the people who supported her, the moments that shaped her, and the memories that stayed with her. Her legacy is unique because it was built quietly. It was not created through dramatic controversies or constant media attention. Instead, it grew through soft moments, gentle songs, heartfelt performances, and a personality that made people feel understood. Many fans say that her music helped them during difficult times, not because it was loud or intense, but because it was comforting. Her tenderness became a safe space for listeners who needed calm in a noisy world. This tenderness continues to reach new listeners today. Younger generations discover her music and are drawn to the purity of her voice. They hear something that feels honest, simple, and timeless. Her songs still play on radio stations, in homes, and in the memories of people who grew up listening to her. She remains a reminder that strength does not always come from raising your voice. Sometimes it comes from being gentle in a world that encourages hardness. Crystal's story is not only a music story. It is a life story about survival, love, identity, and the courage to stay true to oneself. She chose softness, even when life pushed her toward difficulty. She chose privacy, even when fame pulled her forward. She chose family even when career demands tried to take over. Because of these choices, her legacy has a special kind of honesty that continues to inspire people. And when we listen to her now older, quieter, warmer, we hear not just the woman she became, but the child she once was, singing through coal dust, singing through grief, singing toward the light she finally found.